On February 22, 1946, in a small village called Tex, located between Texas and Arkansas in the United States, a young man named Jimmy Hollis, 25 years old, and a girl named Mary Jean, 19 years old, went out to watch a movie at the cinema. After finishing the film, they got into the car and were on their way back to Mary's house. On the way, they pulled over in a quiet spot to talk for a while. After a few minutes, a strange man wearing a white mask appeared. He shined a flashlight on them and pointed a gun in their direction. The man was standing on Jimmy's side and he calmly said, "I don't want to kill you, my friend. Just do as I say and don't argue." Jimmy and Mary got out of the car. The criminal forced Jimmy to take off his pants. Then he hit him twice on the head with such force that it fractured his skull and knocked him unconscious. After that, he tried to assault Mary and steal her purse. Mary later said that she begged him to let them go, telling him they had no money. But the man struck her, knocking her to the ground. When she stood back up, he told her to run. Mary obeyed and started running, but she wasn't fast enough because she was wearing high heels. The attacker chased her, struck her again, and knocked her down. At that moment, Jimmy regained consciousness and tried to stand. He managed to signal to a passing car on the road. The car stopped, and as soon as the attacker saw its headlights, he fled. Jimmy and Mary were taken to the hospital for treatment, where they stayed for more than 12 days. Jimmy was confirmed to have a fractured skull. Now, I will tell you about the first unsolved murder case in Texas history, the case of the Phantom Killer in the mid-1940s. The town of Texarkana was already known as a violent place, where murders, thefts, and other crimes were common. So, the attack on Jimmy and Mary didn't seem like a big deal to the police or even the townspeople. But a month later, another attack happened, and this time, it was murder. On the morning of March 24th, police discovered two bodies. The first was Richard L. Griffin, a 29-year-old man, and the second was Polly Ann, a 17-year-old girl. They were found dead inside a 1941 Oldsmobile on a road that people at the time called Lover's Lane. Both victims had been shot in the back of the head. Richard was found on his knees between the front seats, his pockets turned inside out, showing signs of robbery. Polly was discovered lying in the back seat. The only clear clue the police had was that both victims had been shot with a .32 caliber Colt pistol. The ground at the scene was dirt, so the killer's footprints should have been visible. Unfortunately, heavy rain that day had completely washed them away. With no solid evidence to follow, the police were forced to question as many people as possible. They interrogated over 50 individuals, but nothing useful came of it. The authorities acted as if they were simply trying to show the public they were doing their job. Most people believed this murder had nothing to do with the earlier assault on Jimmy and Mary, that the two incidents were unrelated. But just 3 weeks later, something happened that turned the town's indifference and the police's neglect into pure fear and terror. On April 14th, the police found two more bodies: Betty Booker, 15 years old, and Paul Martin, 16 years old. Before the crime, they had been at a party, and everyone saw them leaving around 1:30. Paul was found in a rural area along the road, shot 4 times in the head, and about a kilometer away in the forest, Betty was found with 2 gunshot wounds. The police immediately noticed that both were shot with a Colt .32 caliber pistol, the same type of gun used in the previous double homicide of Richard and Polly. This marked the third attack on young couples who were either in love or married for less than 2 months. Now 4 young people had been killed, which alarmed the villagers, making them realize that the attacks were connected and that something significant was happening. People became so afraid that when husbands or fathers went to work, women and children would go to a hotel called Grimm and wait there until the men returned because they were scared to stay home alone. Those who didn't go to the hotel bought guns to protect themselves and increased security around their houses with locks, barbed wire, and other measures. The streets became empty, and fear was visible everywhere. a local newspaper called Taxir named the criminal the Phantom Killer. One of the senior investigators, Tillman Johnson, said the police were overwhelmed with calls, mostly at night. Anytime someone saw a stranger near their home or heard a suspicious sound, they called the police. People were terrified, each fearing they might be the next victim of the Phantom Killer. On the 35th, a farmer named Virgil Starks, 37, was at home listening to the radio when a .22 caliber bullet shot through his window, hitting him. His wife, Kitty, ran from their bedroom toward the sound and saw the attacker. The intruder fired twice at her face, knocking out some teeth, but she managed to retreat back into the house and lock the door. While Paul was breaking into the house, she escaped through the kitchen window. Despite having a bullet under her tongue, she reached a nearby farm and was taken to a hospital, where she survived. Her husband, Virgil, however, died from the terror caused by the Phantom Killer. Over 30 police officers went to the crime scene to collect evidence and interview local residents. Investigator Johnson said people would stand behind their doors, shouting for police help before stepping outside, fearing the killer. The police found footprints with blood leading to a public road, but then the trail disappeared. The latest murder intensified the panic. No one knew whether the Phantom Killer had committed this crime or someone else. Previous attacks had targeted young people and involved cars, but this time Virgil and his wife were older and the crime happened at home. Virgil was shot with a .22 caliber pistol, while the other victims had been shot with a .32 Colt. Despite these differences, the police linked the case to the Phantom Killer and tried every method to catch him. They even used decoys, undercover police posing as young couples in public, to lure the killer, but 2 months passed without new crimes. Gradually, fear decreased and life began returning to normal. The police believed the Phantom Killer could be one of two suspects. The first was H.P. Doty, a college student. He had been found dead, leaving a note suggesting that anyone who committed double murders might take their own life. His cousin, Dr. John Tenson, said Doty could have been the Phantom Killer because he had connections with all the victims. He worked at the cinema the victims attended and went to the same school as Betty. However, investigators couldn't confirm his involvement. The second suspect was Lee Sweeney, 29, who had been a soldier in Arkansas during the murders. Max Tact, a witness, said that stolen cars were always reported before the Phantom Killer struck. One car reported stolen on June 28th was found abandoned in a city garage. Investigators traced it to Peggy Sweeney, 21, Lee's new wife. When arrested, she initially claimed her husband committed all the murders. She provided a detailed account that included information only someone present at the crime scene could know, such as the exact location where a book was thrown before a murder. The police tried to interrogate Lee Sweeney, who denied everything. They administered a truth serum, but the dosage caused him to fall into a coma. He is currently under authorities' supervision. After all this, the court surprisingly gave Peggy a short sentence for her involvement in the car thefts and released her. Lee Sweeney was sentenced to life imprisonment for being a repeat car thief, but was released in 1973. After his release, he lived until 1994, passing away in a nursing home. A newspaper article stated that while the Phantom Killer's crimes caused fear, they also united the community, and crime rates dropped afterward. The biggest mystery remains whether the Phantom Killer lived among the community or not. Who committed all these crimes remains unsolved. That was our story for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye, and see you in a new video.